And we start with the man whose copy arrives in my inbox every morning, Cricket et al. I'm an early subscriber. It's there for me every day. Peter Lalor. Hello to you, Pete.
Haven't blocked me yet, Gerard.
Any drive-bys from clown cars this week?
Gee, that looked a little bit harsher on the SEN social media account than I thought when it came out. The words came out my mouth. I've got to be a bit more careful with that filter, Gerard. 24 more sleeps till the Test match, Gerard. 24 more restless sleeps, and given what you've just said, then I'm going to be a little bit more restless. It is true, isn't it? Nobody really is. None of the top six. And we don't know exactly who that top six is, but I think we've got a fair idea who five of them are, goes in with their comfortable boots on. Nobody goes in with a mountain of runs, with a good past 12 months, do they? In fact, perhaps the bloke who's looking the best in the batting lineup is the wicketkeeper, Alex Carey, who's feeling the hot breath of Josh Inglis on the back of his neck. But I think George Bailey indicated the other day that Carey's not under any pressure just yet, is he?
No.
They're not looking at Inglis.
No. The wicket keepers are holding up their end of the bargain, and everyone else looks a bit shaky. What did you take from George yesterday as he laid out the circumstances 4 weeks out?
Well, I took it that Inglis is definitely not an opener anyway. And I probably shouldn't have said that he'd been excluded as a chance to be the wicket keeper, but that won't happen just yet, and shouldn't happen just yet. He said not in the short term. So that is right. That's a Peter Siddle indefinitely, isn't
Yes.
it, for him? So the focus moves to the three openers plus one, which is of course Constas, Harris, Bancroft, and McSweeney. Now, Gerard, if you're the selectors going into this Australia, you've got two Australia A matches, so there's no rush, and they have announced that they're not going to make a decision until November 10, which is essentially the end of those two Australia A matches. So this is a big bat off across 4 innings. Who do you open with in the first Australia A game? It's a tough question, isn't it? My mail is that it's probably the two senior partners there, and that Constas and McSweeney will have to. Well, one assumes Constas goes to 3 and then McSweeney goes to 4. Doesn't really matter a whole lot, does it? What's going to matter is runs, but it is going to be fascinating how the selectors go about it, or how the captain of the Australia A side, which just happens to be McSweeney, isn't it?
It's an unenviable position to be in, and I do like his approach is just to absolve himself, as he has to. I mean, he's just absolved himself of it and said we'll get told in what order to bat. What would be the logic, wisdom, and benefit of opening with Harris and Bancroft, who you know over a long period of time?
I don't know. Do they get first dibs because of seniority, Gerard? I wouldn't do it that way. I would say I've seen enough of those guys. I'd flip the two kids up. I'd put, well, when they're not exactly kids, I've got to stop calling everybody in cricket kids, but Constas and McSweeney, I'd probably have a look at them as an opener. They're more of an unknown quantity, aren't they, than the other two? But we'll wait and see what actually happens on that day. It would be hilarious if McSweeney just sort of overruled, said, I'm captain, I'm opening. Didn't Wadey do that once to Glenn Maxwell? Not exactly opening, but you know what I mean.
Australia A games. So there was one a few summers back where Cam Green batted his way into the Test lineup. It feels like the gravitas around these two games is heavier than it's been for many a year, with the exception of that game, I reckon.
Yeah, there was, of course, the one where Curtis Patterson pushed past Will Pukowski. Was that an A game or was that a Prime Minister's 11? But, yep, they've left it to the last moment. Look, it's just fantastic, isn't it? I probably said this last week and I said it the week before, but I don't remember being so excited about a first test and just about that question mark. It is one question mark, isn't it, really, at the top of the order? But it's got us all in a lather. And we're all sort of sweating on it. I don't think I've ever known Australia to be so tuned into a test match series so far out.
Yes. And we've got a shield round that starts later this week as well. On the incumbents. So Travis Head's been making runs everywhere in all formats. How much of it does sit with Labuschagne and Smith to your eye?
Oh, it's enormous, isn't it? I mean, you're batting at 3 and 4 in the Australian Test team. You are senior players. And one of them is Steve Smith, for God's sake. I think I said that last week. I don't think we'll ever see. I don't think we're going to see the consistency from Steve Smith again that we saw around that 2019 series or a few years before that. But we're going to see glimpses of that, and he's still a very good cricket player, just not as good as he once was. Marnus is a bit of a concern. Marnus, we know they'll be putting in the work, and I feel sorry for the bowlers who have to be bowling to Smith and to Marnus in the lead up to this because they haven't got as much exposure as they'd wanted to in first class cricket. But yeah, there's a bit of pressure on those guys.
It got to the end of last time. Now, Marnus has played a lot of cricket since. He spent the winter in England, but he got himself into a real spot by the end of last summer where he found every which way to get out. Right on breaks, down the leg side. It felt like for those years where he rode his luck, karma called the payback in towards the end of last summer.
Yeah, and it feels like one of those years that you could hopefully benefit from if you're a good player. I think that it never the trajectory is never ever upward, is it? And sometimes you need to be checked a little bit just to work on your game and perhaps ask yourself a few questions, learn a little bit of fear and a little bit of mortality. But Marnus will be working hard. He'll be working very, very hard. I noticed that. I don't know if we'll talk later about left arm off spinners, but I was sort of wondering what had happened to Matthew Kuhnemann since I last saw him in a Test match. I've hardly seen him play a left arm. I've hardly seen him play a first class match. And I read an interview somewhere where he said, "Fortunately, I love bowling in the net, so I do a lot of bowling to Marnus Labuschagne."
Yes, that'll give you every opportunity. If you're the kid in the street who wants to bowl, you want to be around Marnus. Dave has texted through. I reckon this is a good national sentiment. We are constantly hearing about how T20 has taken over the world and how Test cricket is dead. Yet every summer rolls around and the nation is gripped by the Test matches. I couldn't tell you who's in the T20 squad, and it couldn't bother me less. We know what matters when it gets to this time of year.
Great point, though. Great point. And I've been saying this for some time. I think we're all a little bit Malthusian about the future of Test match cricket because when it rolls around, Australians always engage with it and tend to engage with it in increasing numbers. And a really good point on the T20 side, because in fact there is not one single Test player in the Australian T20 side that plays. They're playing Pakistan, Gerard.
Yes, they are.
Just looking past that series, looking past it, get it out of the way so we can get onto the Test matches. But I kind of like that. I mean, if I'm a broadcaster who's paid millions for the rights, even though it is just the sort of canapé before the summer, I kind of like this T20 squad. I've got in front of me Abbott, Bartlett, Cooper Connolly, Tim David, Nathan Ellis, Fraser McGurk, Hardy, Inglis. Oh, there's a Maxi there. We know him, and a Stoinis and a Zampa. But that's an exciting little squad. That'd almost make me tune in to have a look at a few of these players.
And there is a craving around the T20 setup to move to the next generation. Well, this is what a lot of it looks like. So it feels to me like this is a great build up to a Test summer. Little window for Shield cricket to thrive. High consequence Australia A. Bit of white ball ODI with some of the key figures. And I do believe Pat Cummins says runs are runs are runs. I'm a bit of a believer in that the more that we see as they flip between formats. Then the dalliance with the T20's future generation while the Test players go and prepare and we're straight into it. This looks like I don't know whether these things are accidents or deliberate, but this is a very good build-up to the start on November 22.
Yeah, I agree with you. That runs sentiment, and I did have a look at the ODI squad to see, if there was a chance for anybody. And I suppose the one person who's missing out in these sort of these trials for the Test team is in fact Josh Inglis, because he's got the ODI duties there. But runs are runs, as you say. And what if Inglis really has, really comes into his own in that series, and everybody who we're watching as a potential opener fails in the A games? Who knows?
If he gets the chance to make, imagine if he made 2 big hundreds against Pakistan. So I think Inglis, if anything went wrong, Inglis is the first man in. So if somebody broke a finger in the middle order, if there was a reshuffle, if Khawaja suddenly had to retire after a couple of tests because he can't make a run, I reckon Inglis is ready to serve. They're not going to make him an opener as a starting point, but he is primed and ready to serve, and he can only enhance his prospects in these games against Pakistan.
In furious agreement with you there. He is the next one off the rank, and if the spot was a middle order spot, he'd be straight in there. If Steve Smith was, I think if Steve Smith was still in up for opening, we'd probably see Inglis make his debut.
Pete, who's your captain in that T20 squad that you were reading out before?
It's a really good question, isn't it? Oh. Look, it's a pretty good chance to give Inglis a go, isn't it? But you could have a look at Sean Abbott, could do the job. I really don't know, to be honest with you. I really don't know. Who have you got?
I was interested to read. So I read 2 things. One said, well, Maxwell's the logical, and also that they're not going with a player like Maxwell. They want to have a look at the future. So that would be Matt Short, Aaron Hardy, that sort of thing. It depends.
I agree with that, actually. I don't think you worry about making Maxi a captain. Maxi's best when he's unburdened by thought. Yeah.
So that it might be Matt Short in that scenario. Who's captaining the strikers. So you got, because it's actually quite a big job, isn't it, to be captain of the T20 team? There's a lot to implement as you go. So it's not ceremonial, as it were. There's a lot of plans in T20s. It takes a lot of concentration to roll out.
Yeah, I think you've got to retain a lot of information, or have a lot of notes in your pockets, or have a 12th person who's willing to run you out information constantly, because it's the most tactical, like intensely tactical forms of the game, isn't it? And interesting, pity David Warner wasn't around. He could captain that one. Maybe he could put his hand up for that job, Gerard.
Were you supportive of that
happy
change?
Happy birthday for yesterday, David.
You.
Yeah, not you, David.
Him. We share a birthday.
Was yours yesterday as well?
It was.
Oh, happy birthday, Gerard.
Were you supportive of the lifting of the captaincy ban?
100%. Yeah, I don't believe in capital punishment. I think that was excessive to make it a lifetime ban. And I think it'll be good for everybody, actually, to have a little bit of, if David Warner can have a bit of leadership in the BBL. He goes into the Shane Warne category as one of the best captains we rarely had. We did have him once or twice. We didn't have enough of him, but he would have been a great T20 captain, David Warner, on the tactical side of the game.
This made me laugh. Pete will be pleased to know David Warner was the early favourite to win Phone Caller of the Year to the selectors about a comeback until the Prime Minister calls the Qantas boss a short-lived favouritism, Michael. Very nice, Michael. That's an excellent text for a Tuesday morning. Did you have any correspondence with Dave Warner last week?
Yeah. David was chirpy last week. We're sweet. No dramas there. I felt for David a little bit. I reckon, it was a bit tongue in cheek. It was cheeky. I don't think it deserved the hostility of reaction that it got. And I think that offended him a little bit. I even thought that Pat Cummins' response on the grade cricketer could have been a bit more respectful to David, and given everything he's done. But anyway, that was one of those weeks for David. That didn't go down very well. But he did have the leadership ban lifted. I think he wore it a bit heavily, actually. By the end of the week, he was under the weather. He was actually, I think he ended up having a day in bed at the end of the week. So I wouldn't get too many days in bed when you're David Warner.
What did you think of India?
Oh, how good was that, Jared? Seeing India lose a series and England lose a series on the same day. I'm sorry, it's the petty Australian inside me, but I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed it too for the for the winners, for New Zealand to come through like that, and for Pakistan to come through like that. That was great for cricket. Um, I just love the way New Zealand go about their work. In fact, I've just had a message in the Cricket Head Elsa from a Kiwi fan pleading for us to write something about the Kiwis win, because he says there's no media over there writing about it at all. They just take it so low key, didn't they? Did you see Mitchell Santner's post game interview? Ben Horn sent me a little text yesterday that said something like, and I don't know where this came from, but it said that he looked like a guy who'd won on the scratchy cards, and guess what his prize was? Another scratchy.
Yes.
Here's a bloke who's just had the most incredible test match of his life, and he was just so damn low kiwi, I reckon. You know what I mean?
What implications for India do you think there are as we look towards this summer?
Oh, look, I think that India looked a little bit. They lacked a bit of commitment to that series, and it's bitten them on the bum, and it could cost them in the World Test Championship. I don't think you will see that. In fact, I know you will not see India drifting through a series like they did then when they get to Australia. When you get to Australia, you've got to be up and about because you know the fight's on and it's a five match series. I think they might have disrespected their opponents a bit. They might have been tired a little bit. A bit of a worry around, we talk about worries around some of our batters. Indian batters are, their form is harder to gauge because the batting conditions are so bad at home that it affects the returns of their top order. But I read that Kohli has scored 2 centuries since the COVID period. That's a bit of a worry, I think. I like the look of their squad, Jared. I don't know if you've had a close look at it, but there's a kid. There I go, a kid. There's a kid called Isvaran. At least I think that's what he's called until I learn how to pronounce his name. Who's been named in the squad that I'd never heard of before. I did a bit of research on him. He's played 99 first-class games.
Yes.
He's 29 years old, and he's scored 27 centuries. He's not exactly a Sam Constas there, but the Shami absence, that bothers me. I love it when Bumrah and Shami open the bowling, and it's the perfect opening duo for Australia. I bet Usman Khawaja is relieved that he doesn't have to face those two for the next 5 tests of his career.
Yes, they're inexperienced players at international level do have a lot of experience at domestic level. Like even Sarfraz coming through, who's new on the scene, but he's 26, and they're not total greenhorns, are they? Any lot to ponder. All right, Pete. So Thursday, Australia A Shield. Next Monday at the MCG, the first of the international cricket of the summer, so the quasi-public holiday. I think this is a clever piece of scheduling. If word gets out that the game's on, it still feels to me like people don't really know that there's an ODI at the MCG next Monday. If the weather is good and it does look that way, the quasi-pub, that does have a good chance as a fixture, I reckon.
Oh yeah, that sounds fantastic. Yeah, it really is sneaking up on us, isn't it? That ODI series is flying under the radar. Just as your reader said earlier, everyone's got their eyes fixed firmly on that first day of the Test match. 24 sleeps away.
Pete, I'll chat to you next week. Thanks a lot.
Take care, Jared.